So, according to Ian and the newser in them, these, the nature, light, disorder, death, void, and order, these are what can be considered as high magics. These are magics that were created after the universe, after the building blocks. Whereas spirit, fire, air, decay, earth, and water, these are primal magics. They're primordial. They were there from the very beginning. Now, here's where things get really interesting. We know that the fire elementals exist, we've seen them. Air elementals, water elementals, and earth elementals, they all exist. They have their lords, their elemental lords, and the servants of those elemental planes. Now, in Dragonflight, we see the primalists serve and work with the elementalists. And I think my suspicions in this instance have also now become more and more confirmed as time goes on. So more and more, we're starting to find out the primalists summon beings from the elemental planes, which means that these beings that serve the elemental lords do so willingly. They come from the elemental planes in order to aid the primalists, which says something about the relationship between the primalists and the elemental lords and the elementalists, but never mind that. Now, of all 6 of these powers, 2 are conveniently missing. For one of them, we have the answer to what that is. That's spirit. We know that at some point during Azeroth's birth, at some point during Azeroth's formative years, she consumed all of the spirit. At least this is what the Titans told us. It is possible that the Titans lied. It's possible that the Titans were the ones who consumed all of the spirit on Azeroth through the multiple engines and creations and living waters and things that they created. They were the ones who consumed the spirit realm, but they claim that it was Azeroth. So spirit's absence at least has an explanation. Decay's absence, on the other hand, has none. And this is where we get into the story of Galakrond. So, according to Tyr, Galakrond flies off in some direction. He discovers something, some power, some being, something he discovers. This discovery, according to Tyr and them, wasn't even supposed to happen. They didn't think that Galakrond would find what he found when he flew off in this direction. But more importantly, they didn't think that what he found would turn Galakrond into what he became. But after Galakrond discovers this power, this being, this thing, Galakrond turns to his own kind. Now, there's an interesting thing about Proto Drakes that you have to understand. Proto Drakes, by their very nature, get more and more powerful based on what they eat. So the more they eat, the more powerful they become. When they eat just normal fish and deer and, grazers and all that stuff, they will get more powerful, but that will be limited since there's a limitation to the amount of carbs and, energy and shit that they get in based on what they consume. Not carbs, but energy that they consume. Galakrond comes back from discovering this power and he turns to cannibalism. He starts literally eating other Proto Drakes. Now, very interestingly, in Dawn of the Aspects, during one of his battles with one of the undead, or as they called them, the not living drakes, Malfurion is, not Malfurion, Malygos is bitten on his leg. Like, one of the undead bite him on his leg. Then, in a battle against a living Proto Drake, one of Chorus's followers, the Malygos was following Chorus because he wanted to see what the hell was going on. Chorus and Malygos gets into a scuffle. Malygos kills Chorus, and for a moment, after tasting the blood of this Proto Drake, Malygos goes into a hunger frenzy. He can smell the life essence on this Proto Drake, and it is stronger than anything he's ever smelled before. Like, something is willing him to consume this Proto Drake. He needs to eat it. Just from a bite from the undead, it awakens his senses to just the power that is within these Proto Drakes. So we can assume that Proto Drakes have an immensely strong, life force or something to that effect. But anyways, as Galakrond consumes these Proto Drakes, he now gets supercharged. He grows incredibly large, incredibly quickly because of just, I guess, the nutritious meals that he eats. And we already know just how powerful and how quickly this happens. And we know that it has something to do with the power that Galakrond discovered, but not entirely. Because Koros, who didn't discover the same power that Galakrond did, Koros and his fellow, his clutch, they eventually consume a red Proto Drake and a yellow Proto Drake, I believe. They consume them, and they immediately start smelling the same as Galakrond. Like, as Maligos is following them, he smells Galakrond. He smells that same decaying, rot smell from these Proto Drakes. And they're still Proto Drakes at this point. They've had one meal of another Proto Drake. So they haven't turned entirely yet, but their smell, their essence is already being turned into decay. So somehow this is linked to decay. Galakrond, of course, slowly but surely, as he consumes more and more Proto Drakes, turns into a living nightmare. He more eyes form on his body, limbs start forming on his body, the dangles, some of them have some role or purpose, extra wings, extra legs. He starts resembling what can only be described as a monstrosity. When he opens his mouth, instead of just having a row of teeth, he now has multiple rows of teeth, like multiple shit going on. He's turning into almost like an eldritch horror. Okay, that's the best we can describe it as. This is where we get into sort of a more high-level conversation about decay. Remember at the beginning of this, I told you there are 6 forces. One we know is gone because it was consumed. The other, decay, we never hear anything about. The Titans make zero mention of decay. Where it's from, why it exists, what it does, nothing. So is it possible that the Titans either, one, locked up decay to make sure that it would never be discovered due to the dangerous nature of decay, or more importantly, what if the Titans used decay in their experiments? Because if you're thinking about decay, does G'huun not come to mind? And we know that G'huun was a Titan experiment. G'huun operates exactly the same as Galakrond, except for the fact that he isn't a Proto Drake. But he does exactly the same things as Galakrond does. He can raise the dead. He consumes and consumes, constantly hungry. It feels very much like decay. So there is a chance that the realms of decay, in other words, the elemental realms of decay, very much do exist. And either was consumed by the Titans in their experiments, or perhaps more likely, the realms were closed off and all records of those realms were destroyed. And this is where we start veering into the world of Thros, into the world of the Drust, into the worlds of Galakrond, into the worlds of G'huun, into the worlds of decay. All of these beings, and of course now the gnolls that we see in the Dragon Isles, all of them deal with rot, deal with decay, deal with this singular elemental plane. Why is this the first time we really hear about this? The first time we really hear about how this is supposed to work? What did the Titans hide? And why? This is why I love the Null storyline. Because I believe that it is the precursor to Galakrond. We know already that the Primalists serve Galakrond. Now, I believe that Galakrond was the first Primal Incarnate. The Primal Incarnate of decay. We have the Primal Incarnate of fire, of air, of water, of earth, not of spirit, because spirit no longer exists. Do you guys think that Galakrond can be resurrected? Is it possible to bring Galakrond back? Oh, and one more interesting tidbit. The dragon aspects, for some reason, decided never to tell any of the other dragons, none of their flight know this, the true story of Galakrond. None. Caligos found out through an artifact of Tyr what actually happened to Galakrond and how the dragon aspects came to be. There's not a single other dragon that knows the story of Galakrond. The consumption, how close Galakrond came to destroying the world. This is why most dragons view Galakrond as the father of dragons, the progenitor of dragons. That's why whenever dragons get ready to die, they head to Dragonflight. And they lie down next to Galakrond, the father of dragons. And they die. Because they do not know that Galakrond wasn't the father of dragons. The reason Galakrond is considered to be the progenitor of dragons is because of the Proto Drakes, Alexstrasza, Nostormu, Nalfarian, Malygos, and Ysera. Galakrond had to be killed. They were the ones who killed him, and as a result, the Titans blessed them to make them the dragon aspects. So, he is the progenitor of dragons, because without him, there would have been no need for dragons. Why keep that a secret? Again, because he comes from decay. The Titans seems to have gone through a lot of work to ensure that no one ever know about the realms of decay. What is it we'll find in there? That's the big question. That's wild.